day in the hallway, you're singing, "Oh, happy day."
One word prayer. Justice, where are you?
Hey, Linda Kenny Bodden.
Well, let me see if I can get my.
On. Yeah, you seem to have sunk down.
Yeah.
Are you on the couch?
I moved. I actually had such a day that I am on my office sofa. You've been here. Actually, when people come in, clients come in, they come into like my little house type room, and
It's a little lounge. Yes.
Everyone feels comfortable, and I've done that my whole career. I never brought them into like an office setting because I find that people are much more comfortable just sitting around, sitting around the kitchen talking,
Of course. Well, Friday's the usual, just ho-hum, not much happening here.
We weren't even supposed to be on tonight.
And because folks may have missed it, look for the Ashley Merchant interview we did earlier today, and it just ran as a premiere at 5 o'clock. So it'll be out there on the tab. So take a look for that. Very interesting stuff as it relates to Fani and Nathan Wade and the Trump situation. All of it new and exciting and exclusive. So take a look at that when you get a chance.
Not only that, the people were clamoring for Ashley Merchant to get her law license and come in as another pro hoc vice in Massachusetts in the Kara Reed case.
Well, I'll tell you, based on today's activity, they may need another body because I'm not quite sure what's going to happen.
By the way, let me just answer this. Keely said, do I still practice? Absolutely. Let's see. The last year I settled, and the past year, what have I settled? About $6 million of the cases. Yeah, I still practice. The only reason I can do this is because I still practice, or else I'd be, I don't know, on the food line.
What would you be? What would you be exactly?
I don't know what actually, if I had my druthers, I would have a lot more dogs, a lot more animals. I'd be like, everyone thinks this, like, no one can believe that I whitewater raft. They said, you can go 10 days without makeup and all that. Yes, I do all that. That's what I had my druthers. I would be just like, I'd be taking care of animals and dogs, and I just, except for one animal. There's one animal I just don't particularly like, but we won't go there right now.
Okay. Does it have a name or a breed or
it has a?
Is it human?
No, it's not. Okay. It's not human. Yeah. Okay. So no. But I love practicing law. I really do. I just love it.
That's why people. I was reading something the other day where a guy was just beginning law school, and he had an opportunity to perhaps become an air traffic controller, and he was looking at the, down the road, how much am I going to make? What's the benefit of each? I think if you're making those decisions, you should not be practicing law because you clearly are not drawn to it like you need to be. It's a scary statistic that 75% of all practicing attorneys wish they were doing something else.
Yeah,
and it's because they're so disappointed in the process and in what they thought they would be doing versus the real world of what they're doing. So you got to love the law. You've got to be willing to put up with a lot of bullshit in and out of court, in and out of the justice system. And you got to care about your clients.
In fairness, too, and I have wonderful clients. I just have absolutely wonderful clients representing somebody right now, and she knows who she is if she's watching this. Just terrific. But my practice is different. I have never done like the little things. I jumped in as a prosecutor. I tried a death penalty case, did trial work when women, believe it or not, women lawyers weren't a thing. Okay. And the only time you saw a woman lawyer in court if they were doing family law, and not that family law isn't important, it's just that it's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a criminal defense lawyer, and that was it. That's what I wanted to be, and that's where I was going.
Yep, the path is a very interesting one. I ended up doing mostly consumer stuff, so I represent consumers against big business and big government, and because I think we're constantly getting screwed by both. And so my goal is to represent them and make it less painful and maybe get something back. So,
sure, but you're also good, Michael. You have done, before we start the thing, Michael has to have me. He's a practicing lawyer. He does a lot of things. News reporting. He is fearless out in the field. I've never seen anyone like him. And plus, he can be tough as nails, but he can be funny and terrific.
Oh, please. This is my life? Did I die? What happened? Is this my eulogy? What happened? Yes.
All right, enough of that. Now go back to being like
Yes. So, and
Pattern.
it seems to me, I mean, maybe it's just, hold on a second. Maybe it's just my imagination. I'm stalling for about 4 or 5 seconds here. Maybe it's just my imagination, but it seems to me like we got a lot of this happening for some reason.
Yeah, and then let me add
Okay, so obviously, Karen Reed continues to dominate the headlines, the scuttlebutt, the buzz. Where should we start with this? Should we start with the real quickie, the real simple?
Yeah, let's start with the real quickie.
Real-
Okay,
real
let's start with the
if I can
in law.
no.
In law, that is. Let's not get people crazy because you know what's going to happen. I'm going to start getting ads that I'm going to see for things.
I have no idea what you're talking about, so I'm going to move on here. Let's see. Motion. A lot of motions. Motion. Okay, there it is. There it is. And this one is not. Hey, I've seen that before. This is not the one that's going to dominate the conversation today, but it is worth throwing out there because it did happen. Motion to stay court proceedings pending First Circuit appeal. This was filed in an effort to, as you know, that they, you know, I don't want to go the whole backstory, but there was a motion by the defense based on juror affidavits that they came to a unanimous decision on counts 1 and 3. That's making its way through the appellate process. They wanted to stay the appellate courts, stay the state court activity, the trial, which is starting in less than 2 weeks, so it could work its way through the appellate court because it's based on double jeopardy. And if it's granted in some form, then the second trial would never start. You have to resolve the double jeopardy issue, and how that would be resolved, who knows? But the appellate court, almost before the ink was dry on this thing, I barely got the highlighting done. And what was the decision?
Denied.
Denied.
As a matter of fact, our producer Dizzle said she barely got the motion uploaded on our drive because we have a drive. We keep all these things. When it was breaking announced, one sentence that the court had denied, the circuit court had denied the stay, and trial would commence on April 1st. I mean, I don't think it passed people by today. It happened so quickly.
Yeah, I mean, it was amazing. I kind of appreciate that, and I think that's great. And we know that they're going to file their next appellate brief on the 26th, which is just next week. So what are the odds that the appellate court is going to rule in the 4 days between filing and the start of the new trial?
Well,
Probably
let me tell you,
not.
I've had a motion pending in a federal court since September just to seal records. Okay.
Yeah.
We haven't gotten a response yet. Okay. That's September, October, November, December, January, February, March. You know, we're going on 7 months. All right. And that's the norm. Normally, it's a very long time. So don't you tell me that these courts don't know what's high profile and what's out there.
Of
They
course.
absolutely
Of
love.
course. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, they're not dummies. So,
Yeah.
okay, so that little piece of business is done.
I can
and
tear
out of
this
the
up
way.
now.
Throw that away. You
Tearing
know,
that up.
yeah, throw that one away. Not going to
Okay.
mean much anywhere. So now we have the more fun stuff. Now we were talking yesterday about the ID show, A Body in the Snow, the Karen Reed story.
Mhm.
Dun dun dun.
You've seen some of it. I have.
I've seen the whole thing.
Oh, you've seen the whole thing. Okay.
Yeah, it was because they put it out 2 episodes, then 2 episodes, and then the final episode, about 4.5 hours total. And I had said, you know, it was pretty good. I've produced this stuff. You know, my wife's produced this stuff. You know, the Epstein saga, Filthy Rich was her production. She's the director on that. The Ghislaine Maxwell. I've done a ton of other shows that are not nearly as good or high profile as my wife's, but nonetheless, I know the process. And what impressed me was the access. Access is everything.
That's it.
If you watch any of the episodes, you'll see that they're embedded. This company is embedded with the defense team. They're in the war room. They're on all of the things that you want to do as a producer to tell this story. They had it all, including the back and forth to the court awaiting the verdict and the mistrial, the whole thing. Well done, I thought.
That's always and we'll talk about it more. It's always an iffy thing. I mean, I've had this discussion with a lot of different people. One of the first cases that actually they had embedded access was the West Memphis 3 a long time ago. There's been a lot of stuff on it. You can look it up. It's three kids, 3 people accused of killing 2 children in West Memphis, Arkansas. And HBO had done a program on it that wasn't called the West Memphis 3. It was called something else, and I don't remember what that was. And it was believed at that time that embedding caused those kids to be convicted, that it was not a good thing. But they needed the embedding. That for number one, they were getting money for their experts because the kids were absolutely broke, right? And number two, eventually it resulted that having that show and having it broadcast and having that footage helped them get out 30 years later on a NOLA plea. And now they're probably going to get DNA testing, and they're still fighting this case even though they're out. So it's always, and I don't know how you feel about it coming from both sides, Michael, but there's always a question about whether you should allow filmmakers to embed access with you.
And the bigger question really is, when do you air the production? Okay, if you take the and what we're talking about here is the latest move by the Commonwealth. We haven't really teed it up. If people haven't heard about it, they are now asking for all of the raw video and interviews between Karen Reed and anybody involved in the production, because they say she has waived her attorney-client privilege based on statements she made during this production. A lot of it aired, but they want it all. They want the unaired stuff and the aired stuff. So we're going to dig into this to talk about the privilege. When is it waived? And to me, this is a case of scope. I'm not as concerned about the waiver, but I think scope is key here. And this is going to be
and interesting. Before you go to the other thing you have is that you tend to want to do these. For instance, when I was representing Jason Williams, we had him do an interview because we knew there was going to be a gag. We knew the gag order was coming, and it was held, and it was played. The interview was played. We had no control over when it was played, except we didn't want it played while the jury was being selected, right? For obvious reasons, that you don't want to be accused of jury tampering in any way. But that way it was held, and it was there for whenever the TV station wanted to play it. By the time it was played, it was meaningless for the prosecutor to get anything.
Yeah, it's and to answer your original question and get my thoughts on that, it's dicey when you make that decision to let your client speak. And it's going to, if you don't have a lot of control over when it's released, that's even more dicey. Because in this case, I think if this were released the day after trial 2 ended, obviously it wouldn't be the issue that it is now. But from a filmmaker's perspective, the timing is just what you want. You want this thing within a week of the trial. It gets everybody amped up. It gets great numbers, and that's what you're there for. So you have to, as a filmmaker, assume that the participants know what the hell they're doing. You have to assume that if they're going to talk, that they're going to allow you to follow their every move. Then you get what you get. My question might be to the defense team: did you know it was going to air before the second trial? Because
I don't think they have to answer that.
Issue. Well, no, they don't have to answer it. I'm saying for their purposes, would they have allowed the access they did if they knew this was going to air before the second trial?
But they may, and they may for the reason that you want to make sure the jury pool, right, even though you don't say it, sees what's out there and what you had to go through and what you went through in the first trial to end up with the result that many of the jurors had come forward and said there was a not guilty on the main count, the murder count. So you may want that.
Well, I think you may be perfectly right, and if so, then hey, they know the risks, they know what they're doing. They may not have calculated the Hank Brennan factor into this equation.
This is going to be fun because I think
so. Let's do this.
Different opinions on this. And we have a lot of questions, so why don't we do it first?
You want to do some questions? I was going to watch the
I think we should watch the trailer, watch some things first, and we're starring questions. We want you all to put your questions there. We're going to get to them, okay? Even if I have to stay longer than Michael, we will get to your questions. So please stay.
She's already kicking me out the door. Okay.
Isn't that what married couples do sometimes? Yes. We're not married.
Honey, isn't it about time we leave? Okay, so this is the trailer.
Karen Reed is accused of hitting John O'Keefe with her SUV and leaving him to die in the snow.
Their relationship was not a happy one.
Not a single witness actually saw this happen.
There's a whole other side of the story.
This is funny, Ms. Reed?
They've got her guilty already.
So, did you drive your car into John?
Doing this film is my testimony
I want to say what happened exactly as it happened. John was a Boston police officer. We went to the bar with a bunch of cops. Jen McCabe invited us to the Alberts. Last I ever talked to him when he got out of my car at Brian Albert's house.
Everybody liked Karen, and everything changed.
He was found dead on the lawn of another police officer.
This is one of their own, and that raises the stakes.
Miss Reed stated that she hit him 3 times. I hit him. I hit him.
I hit him. That statement doesn't appear on any of the tapes.
They were shocked.
I am not on trial. I am a witness.
It's impossible to have any sympathy. They're all lying.
She'd smile or laugh.
She's posing for pictures.
Her behavior, in conjunction with the hard evidence, points in one direction.
DNA evidence placed parts of John on Karen's car.
Feels like I'm in a bad dream. This can't be real.
She was angry. She had been drinking.
How many calls?
There was over 50.
What did you text about going through Karen Reed's phone?
No news so far.
There were gasps.
One of the most uncomfortable moments of this entire trial.
Shame on you, sir.
Elle magazine wants to feature me.
She was the happiest murder defendant in America.
You're either pro Karen Reed or you are pro police.
It's become a civil war.
This justice system will never be the same after this.
I can't believe what's happening to me.
All righty, so there you go. Interesting line in there. This is going to be my testimony, right? Little did she know, maybe more so than she thought initially.
Yeah, but it may not. This may not hurt her. And we'll talk about the motion that was filed. But this morning, by the way, I did a plug for us on one of the greatest crime scene investigators that exists right now today, and I'll plug her also, Cheryl McCullum. Those of us who are here watch her probably Zone 7 podcast. It's won a lot of awards. She's been doing her job for, I think, 43 years, I think she said. She would never have recommended to bring this case. She thinks this case is a travesty to bring. That's from a law enforcement background. And we wanted to make a point, and even here before we talk about this, that when we say or we take a bent on this, that on whatever way we go, because we call it like we see it, but if we take a bent that we say the state has not proven their case beyond a reasonable doubt, which is what the burden is, we're not saying that doesn't mean that we're not for justice for Mr. O'Keefe, for John O'Keefe. Justice for John O'Keefe is finding out what happened to him, whether it's accident, whether it was a homicide, whether it was not a homicide, whether it was something else, whatever it is. But if she's not guilty and the state can't prove it beyond a reasonable doubt, that's not justice. Yeah, I mean, that's what makes me most upset is that nobody seemed to do their job. Otherwise, they would have a much stronger case or a different defendant. Right. If you can prove it's Karen Reed, prove it. Okay, fine. But if it's not, then who was it? And why don't we have more information to really point us in the direction of the person who did it? It's just not a very strong and
case.
Maybe it was nobody. I mean, you and I have talked
We've talked about a few scenarios.
Scenarios here. Yeah. And the thing about it is, and I'm going to give you some inside scoop for those who are watching. The goal of a defense attorney, by the way, is to get that jury in that jury room and talk about the different scenarios that it could be. Because if there are scenarios that you and I can discuss and bat around because we're not sure, because the state didn't prove its case beyond a reasonable doubt, guess what? Defense is supposed to win that case. It's win and not get a conviction. Yeah, I've said it before, but it's a simple formula. You get done with the prosecution's case and you say, I'm not sure what happened. You're done. That is not beyond a reasonable doubt. And so what you do when you get to that point, you bring in somebody who represented Whitey Bulger as a special prosecutor. His name is Hank Brennan. He is a good lawyer. Okay, he has changed the whole tone of this case. Right, he's taken what Lally was totally ineffectual, obviously, and has turned the defense to having to justify themselves. So that's what he's done. So in that regard, whether you hate him or love him, he is a good lawyer. I just don't particularly like the digs that yesterday I told you, and I said this to you yesterday. It was a turning point. The constant digs to the defense, the constant digs. Come on, let's go. Let's be professional.
Yes, and of course, unless you're the defense, Judge Bev won't point that out. She won't.
Oh,
let's keep it. Let's not be so personal. Speaking of Hank, let's look first of all at his affidavit, just one portion of it. Again, this is the affidavit.
What did he want? Why don't we tell people what he wants?
Well, he wants not, and this is what I find interesting. He cites three things. He cites the Gretchen Voss interview, which is from Boston Magazine, and if you will recall, she was at first told by this court to give up even her personal notes from interviews with Karen Reed. There were 3 different interviews, 2 in which her attorneys attended and were recorded, and then 1 that was just her and Karen, no notes, no recording. I'm sorry, no recording, there were notes. And the court at first said, yes, the prosecution can have those notes. There was a motion for reconsideration, which, as we've mentioned before, is like asking mom if I can stay up late. I just told you can't stay up late. No, I won't. I'm not changing my mind. But in this case, Judge Bev changed her mind, in part because of some fine lawyering, right?
Right.
And you know what? We should get him on again.
We absolutely should.
We had Gretchen Voss's attorney on after he was successful in getting Judge Bev to reconsider whether to cough up those notes. She protected them, despite Massachusetts' horrible lack of a shield law for reporters. They have a much more different kind of a balancing test.
And that's a problem. That's what's going on right here.
That's exactly what's going on. This would not be an issue in most other states with a shield law.
Yeah, and this started with the Commonwealth filing a motion to compel communications. Now, listen to this, everybody. This should scare you. This should send shivers down your spine, whether you're innocent, guilty, whether you love the law or don't love the law. The Commonwealth filed a motion to compel communications between Karen Reed, who they call the defendant, and her attorney, Yannetti, stored within the defendant's cell phone data. They want to pierce the attorney-client privilege, okay? All right? And when you see why, maybe we'll have a different view on this, but I think it's damn lame.
It's an area that is normally just assumed off limits, right?
Right.
And I think this is the Commonwealth's way of saying, look, you want to be out there shooting your mouth off? Okay. Let's see how much you appreciate what we do after we see you shooting your mouth off. So he's talked about the Gretchen Voss interview. He's talked about the Vanity Fair interview. And now, because those are old news, those are past history. But now, this new ID show, which I guess is also on HBO Max on demand. So he's saying in all of these publications, and they are all print or broadcast publications, that she has said certain things that incriminate her or contradict other statements made to the police or other witnesses. And he's saying that by sitting there effectively, either with her attorneys or with their approval, that she has waived the attorney-client privilege because she has shared it with a third party. Well, in this case, anybody who watches the show. Initially the director, now anybody who watches the show. She has waived the privilege. So the question becomes, was it intelligently and voluntarily waived?
But she waives the privilege for what she says.
Well, yeah, that's my point. That's a scope issue.
Yeah,
that's why I think it's a scope issue.
Yeah, but the scope is important because he's saying, well, if you do that, then, we're entitled to everything. Anyone
of course,
who's ever been
that's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. Everyone who's ever been in a deposition, when they say, oh, you waived the privilege. No. I mean, I'm sorry. I am really incensed about this, as you can tell.
I couldn't tell. Good thing you're on your couch, so you can be a little more,
relaxed for Friday.
A little more relaxed. So let's look at this. First, we'll look at his affidavit in support, and I just want to look at one chunk of it because then we're going to get to some of the more specific bits and pieces. But this is, let me get rid of this. Sorry, got to go and get rid of that one there. Then I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do some of this. And again, this is, anytime you do one of these motions, you need to have an affidavit in support of. And so that's what we're going to look at now, just this chunk of it. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here on the bottom. Here we go. I believe the communications requested are non-privileged because the discussions with Attorney Yannetti, and again, these are attorney-client privilege. This is Yannetti and Karen Reed. That's She has obviously a ton of attorneys, but this is specifically Yannetti and Karen Reed, and relates to conversations between the 29th of January and the 2nd of February, that first 3 days, right?
Right.
They are, let's see, because the discussions with Attorney Yannetti during the requested time frame, which I just mentioned, and subject matter of the defendant striking John O'Keefe have been intentionally disclosed to the public by the privilege holder and are no longer confidential. So that's the guts of the argument, right?
Right. And he lays out what the statements are. Okay. I don't know if we have that.
Oh, we
highlighted.
have it. Don't
Okay.
you worry. Don't you
Oh,
worry.
I know that you. I
We
know
got that.
Yeah. By the way, Kay Schmidt gifted 5 Justice TV
Thank you,
memberships.
Kay.
Kay, thank you so much. You are so generous all the time. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And keep putting your questions in there. We're going to keep starring them. We will get to them. We promise.
Yep, we can stop and start whenever. So as I'm doing this, if if you need me to
No,
take a
let's
break and get some
set
questions,
this
let me
up
know.
because I think all the questions I'm seeing need the whole setup.
Okay, let's see. Okay, I believe this will do it. Okay, so this is the actual motion. Let me bring it up a little bit larger. There we go. Okay, Commonwealth seeking all texts, emails, or written communications between Karen Reed and David Yannetti between January 29, 2022 and February 2nd. So there's the actual nuts and bolts of the motion. But look at this footnote. See this reference as a footnote?
Yeah.
So let's take a look at that footnote, shall we?
Shall we? Yes.
Pursuant to a search warrant, the Commonwealth received the contents of the defendant's cell phone. Now, listen to this. Because of an observed attorney-client communication, the phone data was provided with the assent of the defense to the Attorney General's office and a court-ordered taint team. Remember we talked about the taint team yesterday?
Yeah, we didn't know who they
in the
were. Right.
Yeah, that we were talking about in the context of Aidan Carney's phone and his messages to or from Karen Reed, which was the subject of a collateral motion. Was that just yesterday? It seems like that's when the 5-team Karen Reed team, they marched into the courthouse like, hey, what are you guys trying to do? We're kind of pulling a fast one here.
Right.
Anyway, so that's the taint team they talked about then, and it was used apparently in this case. They used their taint team protocol. That's what was implemented. The Commonwealth received the defendant's phone data with any privileged communications excised. So that's the way it's supposed to work. You got to trust people, and I have some trouble trusting some of these folks, but you got to trust them that this taint team doing their job will pull anything that is arguably privileged, whether it's husband-wife, whether it's journalist, whether it's, in this case, attorney-client, and then they turn over the rest. Given the defendant's public waiver of the attorney-client privilege as it pertains to the defendant's conversations with Attorney Yannetti on that date and the 3 days following, the Commonwealth is entitled to the communications between the defendant and Attorney Yannetti for this waived narrow period of time. Okay, so they're trying to change. They're trying to make the scope look reasonable, right?
Right.
But they're going beyond what was released to the public. Okay, so moving on.
I'm trying to be
touch.
calm.
Here's the waiver of the privilege, and I do appreciate they put Mass Evidence Code 523 in here. Conduct constituting waiver. This is sub B. A privilege is waived if the person upon whom this article confers a privilege against disclosure, A, or 1, voluntarily discloses or consents to disclosure of any significant part of the privileged matter, or 2, introduces privileged communications as an element of a claim or defense, which is more in the context of litigation. Okay, so they're relying obviously on B1 here.
All right.
Another footnote to ensure, again, these are the efforts to make it look reasonable. To ensure that only the communications that were waived are provided, the Commonwealth requests that this honorable court, Judge Bev, you got anything else to do? Review in camera, meaning just her privately, all text messages and written communications stored in the defendant's phone data for the time between, again, January 29 through February 2. So let's see what else we got here. And these are the specific references that we kind of mentioned broadly.
This is important, right?
Here's the Gretchen Voss interview.
Right.
Okay. And the specific reference to the defendant conceding, you never said, this was the question to her, you never said, did I hit him? I hit him. She answers, I said, could Did I? Could I? Did I hit him? And then, when I talked to David, important part of this, now this is later, David said, Karen, if you incapacitated him in any way, this is a typo, there's culpability there. They put capability, but I think we get it. Okay, so that's the one. That's the one. Second, the Vanity Fair article entitled Karen Reed Tells Her Story, Part 1, a murder trial in Massachusetts. And they reference volunteering a rumor that alleged representations made by the state police that there's a text message between her and counsel that implicates herself in is a provable lie. And I think that's also grammatically wacky. Something's missing there. But there's supposedly a text between Karen Reed, David Yannetti, that suggests being untruthful. And then, of course, the final one, which was really the triggering event here, because all those other things they've already happened. It's done.
Right.
Investigation Discovery, HBO Max, the trailer we just looked at. In it, she says, then when I hired David Yannetti, I asked him those questions the night of January 29th. Like, David, what if I ran his foot over, or what if I clipped him in the knee and he passed out, or went to care for himself and he threw up or passed out? And David said, yeah, then you have some element of culpability. Hey, they spelled it right the second time. So that is the crux of the final piece of this three-pronged attack.
This is not merely a fishing expedition. Number one, let's talk. I don't trust. Who had this phone? Was it Michael Proctor who had the phone, who supposedly, as was shown today, who supposedly put it into airplane mode?
Yeah, and yet it apparently wasn't really in airplane mode.
Airplane mode, yeah, and usually they put into what's called a Faraday bag. I actually put my car key in a Faraday bag when I'm in the country, so people can't go past, and because they can just drive past and steal the code.
I got a Faraday bag.
You have a Faraday bag too, so supposedly the airplane mode does that. So are we going to really trust Proctor? Did they already look at it? And therefore they're trying to get some way around the fact that they've already seen something that they want to use. But this is like, what did I, as a matter of fact, in the trial, the first time when the supposed confession was not recorded, because this is not a confession. This is somebody wanting to know, what could have possibly happened? Did I hit him? Could I have hit him? Discuss it, on the night that she's drunk, that she's just found out that her boyfriend has died. And remember, she's not being charged at that. She hadn't been charged yet when she's at the scene right there. So, I mean, this, to me, this is bullshit. Okay. This is more bullshit. And what I think
slinging that legal terminology around.
Yeah, I really do, because what I think this is really about, I think this is about the Hank Brennan sleazily trying to put a wedge between Karen Reed and the defense team. It was tried
because they couldn't get it done the other way.
They couldn't get it done with ARCA. They tried, and that's when, remember, with ARCA, Judge Beverly Cannoni brought Karen Reed to her bench before she decided what sanctions, if any, she was going to impose. And she may have imposed some, but she wanted to ask something of Karen Reed, like, maybe, do you still want to keep your attorneys given that this may inure against you, or something like that? So I think this is more of this. This is trying to say, hey, my attorney somehow I screwed up here because he let me do this documentary knowing what was on the cell phone, knowing what text he may have had with me. And I think this is more of this bullshit. And quite frankly, what I'm concerned about is Judge Cannoni is going to fall for it. The only thing that I think may...
Well, she likes to fall for it if it hurts the defense, but
right,
yes.
Except that she likes David Yannetti. Everybody likes David Yannetti, okay? So, I mean, I'd be in the courtroom. If I were arguing this, obviously, I would be a little bit more lawyer-like, but I would still be as passionate arguing that this is just nonsense to try to get conversations that may not mean anything, that may be somebody ruminating about what could have possibly happened. And you and I discussed this in the past.
And
right?
I think it's perfectly reasonable. And if you look at the video from, the body cam when they were looking for him, then found him, and she's asking, is he dead? Is he dead? She's frantic.
Right.
I mean, she is how I think I would be if somebody I cared about was involved in some sort of mishap. Their life was threatened. I mean, we've seen so many trials over the years, right? And either participated in or reported on, where the person who's the suspect is cool as a cucumber, right?
Right.
And
right.
there's always some criticism. Well, how come they weren't? Well, we never know how we're going to react to that. Well, that's after the fact. That's maybe when you learn somebody has died, and a few days later. This is that moment, that night, when she's right there. So you have to believe she's an amazing actress, right? Or it's legit that she had no idea what happened.
Yeah, yeah, and they said Brennan said, well, they learned new things more. That she pulled a piece of glass out of his nose. So what?
Yeah.
So what? We know
Yeah.
there's glass from we know there's glass because he was holding a glass, but we know that what she didn't pull out of his nose was a piece of
polycarbonate taillight.
Polycarbonate taillight, right?
Hey, welcome to the Upside World. Is that a reference to what was that show, Stranger Things? Is that the Upside World? Do you think her doing these documentaries hurt her? I guess in retrospect, if she's found guilty, you could say, boy, it was because of those. I don't think so. I think she comes off pretty well. She comes off vulnerable. And I don't see anything in the documentary that changes my mind about what the prosecution put on at trial the first time.
Right, right. And sometimes, you want to ask for this. Hank Brennan wants to ask for this. I know somebody kind of said, well, he's a good lawyer. Yeah, he actually is a good lawyer because he's done what he's good for the state because he's done what they've asked him to do. He's a defense counsel, and he's taken his defense counsel skills and he's turned it against. He's turned the whole vibe in that courtroom around for his client. Now, is that a good lawyer? Yes. Is it somebody you may not like? Absolutely. But you can't. I don't think you can denigrate his skills. I denigrate the doing this kind of stuff. I denigrate being at the defense team. I denigrate every time the defense wanted to do something yesterday. He was out them, and yet the defense got yelled at. I denigrate the fact that he knows he seems to be able to twist Judge Beverly Cannoni on his side because of something that has happened that she believed Alan Jackson's not truthful with her. I denigrate doing that. What I don't denigrate is if he just tried the case to try to get to whatever happened is the truth. Maybe he'll change his mind. I don't know.
From Montevecchione, can any of the motions in limine filed by defense be appealed if denied by Bev? No, I mean, where they would become part of an appeal is if there's a conviction, an appeal is filed. One of the many grounds might be the denial of a motion in limine or the upholding of a motion in limine for the other side, something that hurt the defense case. But no. And again, part of the reason is because their motions in limine are so fluid. It's not really a final determination on the merits, which you'd have to have before appealing anything. That's just the rules. Yeah. Got to have a final determination on the merits. Motion in limine, could change day 1 of trial, could change day 20 of trial, depending on testimony, depending on other witnesses and other evidence. So, no. Hey, you mentioned something.
Can we look at one other thing? Paragraph 8. And it's
which document? Same document.
Contrary, same document. Contrary to the representations made by the court on March 18th, 2025. Hold on, let me see if I can find it for you.
Yeah, let me see. I've got 2 different documents. I've got the other one I want to open up after this is very interesting, because now they've gone after the filmmaker's raw video.
Yeah.
Which is very much like the Gretchen Voss case, right?
My name is Hank Brennan. It may be in his affidavit. All right, let me read it. Okay, let me read it.
Okay, go ahead.
Contrary to the representations made to the court on March 18, 2025, the defendant admits on March 17, 2025, aired episodes that she used an intermediary to share discovery with Aidan Carney. This goes back to the issue of Dr. Turtleboy from yesterday. Then, with the permission of her defense counsel, shared public information, public in quotes, presumably all discovery provided to the defense that would ordinarily not be public due to investigatory nature of the prosecution with Mr. Carney. Mr. Carney then used this material to advance the defendant's narrative and direct harassment of the witnesses. She further admitted that she spoke with Mr. Carney regularly about her case. Further, contrary to representations made to this court on March 18th, the defendant expressed something, whatever there. But so they're now bringing in this motion to get Yannetti's calls with her, texts with her, I guess it is, conversations with her, I should say, the whole Aidan Carney thing. that really has no place in whether or not she waived any privilege, but now it goes into these documents, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I'm looking at the motion. We already went through his affidavit, so I think it might be at the end of the motion. But anyway, yes, it's a reach. It's an overreach.
And it's also a way to say, hey, look, you gave us, Judge Canoni apparently accepted the fact that Aidan Carney's phone was ordered to be turned over in terms of under the docket number of Karen Reed so they could get information. She apparently accepted that. And so now they're using that to say, okay, now we have this, and then now we have the documentary. And so they're kind of smushing it. He's smushing it all together.
Yeah.
Like to say, hey, Judge, there's a fast one being pulled here. Let's breach the attorney-client privilege.
Yeah, well, and it all relates to Karen Reed's public persona. That's what it's all about. The prosecution always wants the defendant who just cowers in the corner. That's what they want. But this is a defendant that isn't doing that, for better or worse. And it's annoying the prosecution. But remember, they have such a horrible case. They're throwing everything they can against the wall.
They don't have a manner of death. They don't have what killed him. They don't have a good investigation. They have a lead investigator that's now been fired. They have a lead investigator who came to the conclusion that she was guilty of murder before there was ever a medical examiner on the scene. They had a lead investigator who never went to the scene. They have a Sally Port videos that are all screwed up. They have people lying on the stand. Yes, lying on the stand.
I know. I was triggered when I saw Jen McCabe.
Right? Yeah, they have all this stuff, but they're going to throw it all against the wall now and trying to get some kind of conviction. Why? Because they're mad they didn't get it the first time.
Yep. And it seems
Shy Gal,
to me
by the way,
so obvious.
Shy Gal just donated. Thank you very much. $20. Not exactly on topic, but how many experts on one subject can you have? Is there a limit? Sometimes the judge will limit you to no more than two. When you start getting beyond that.
The broad rule is, things become cumulative at a certain point, and so unless it's such a weird piece of science or many different pieces of science that you need one expert for each, how many would you really need? Come on. We love experts, right? But juries at a certain point glaze over and, it gets to be a little counterproductive.
So
okay, so I'm going to look at this now. This is Unsolved Productions, and again, this is it's named that. This is a relatively new filmmaker, but she was with Unsolved Mysteries. I think she did a number of those, and so perhaps that's how she decided on the name of her company to be. And they have very little presence online. It's this is like one of their first projects. Getting some notice, I'll tell you that.
Sure. That's for sure.
Not necessarily what you want, but they say no such thing as bad publicity. I'm sure the numbers are going to get just nothing but better for this show.
I have to watch it now.
Yeah, again, putting all this crap aside, I think it's decently done. And like I said, for me, that's pretty high praise. I think they did a decent job. And why? Because of the access, which now might be biting them in the ass. So
you and your wife are in the business. Both of you have won all sorts of awards, all sorts of filmmaking awards. So you would know. I just want to tell people, just look Michael Bryan and also look up his wife, Lisa. Lisa's recent wins were a number of wins for the Epstein documentaries that was it on Netflix? Were they on Netflix?
Netflix, yeah. I think Filthy Rich is in the top 2 of all time for Netflix programs.
Yeah. So both of you know when you see a good product.
So, and don't forget, shameless plug coming here. We did 2 seasons of I Survived a Crime. They were done on A&E, picked up by Netflix, went to number 2 on Netflix, and I believe the second season is about to drop on Netflix. So I will mention that again when it actually happens. Anyway, so here you see Unsolved Productions. Terry Muir, she's the producer, director. It's her company. It's her show. Okay. So here's what they're looking for. All unedited video and audio recordings in the possession of Unsolved Productions and producer Terry Muir from the docuseries A Body in the Snow, The Trial of Karen Reed. All unedited video and audio. You know whose phone should be ringing right now?
The lawyers?
Yeah, Gretchen Voss's attorneys. And I apologize. His name always slips my mind because it's like it's a normal sounding name, but it's just a little tweaked, and so in my brain it drops off. But we interviewed him. He was very popular. He was very good. I met him at the courthouse the day he made his argument that the decision hadn't come in yet, and I'm giving him a hard time, like, it's a motion for reconsideration. Come on, the odds are not good. And he was very positive.
He was positive. You're going to have the Netflix lawyers, and you're going to have a lot of lawyers in here because, well, first of all, Michael, let me ask you this: you've been in this situation. If you have a registered agent, just an agent, how does an order from Judge Cannoni get enforced in California to bring things? Number one. Number two, every production I've ever been involved with, all their back stuff, once it's gone and cut, gone. So that way it can never be subpoenaed, right? So
well, and again, in California, if this were taking place there, you'd have not only better access to the person, but they have a much better shield law. They have an actual shield law. So you can see that they're sending this to, let me double check here. I believe I read that they were doing, any corporation has to have an agent for service of process.
Right.
And
they have an agent in Massachusetts, one agent in Massachusetts, but they're not a Massachusetts company.
Right. And her company's out of California. They're Burbank. Right. But you have to have a registered agent because when you do a product that is global, and that's what this is, you have to make yourself available for litigation. That's what it's about. You have to make yourself available for litigation, and you do it through an agent for service of process. Margaret Jarrett is that person. These people, here's a job. I always like finding jobs that I never thought existed or didn't understand, when I was growing up. This is their business. They are a registered agent for thousands of companies.
Right.
And their job is to check the mail and see if one of their people has been sued, and then they move on from there. But that's their whole job. What a crazy job. So we know what they want.
Pretty no stress. You get notice of the suit and you send it
on.
Oh
yeah, because you're not. Yeah, they send it to you and you stress out. Yeah. So there she is listed, Terry Maurer, president of Unsolved Productions and the producer of the 5-part docuseries. The access to the defendant and her defense team was, quote, unprecedented. Remember that access thing I talked about? Well, there it is. Let's see if there's anything else of interest in here. In paragraph 6, a reference. Again, these are some specific references from the series. And I remember hearing this and thought, oh, that's new. I hadn't heard that before. She admits to consuming large amounts of vodka. We know that's not new. And being significantly impaired. Her position, even within this 5-part docuseries, wavers from a claim that she remembers every detail from January 29, 2022 to admissions that maybe her memory wasn't as clear, where she had been drinking. Okay? So we're getting to the glass, because you mentioned the glass.
Right.
Very important moment in this project. Obviously, Domino is very concerned about this.
Yes, he is. Hi, Domino.
The defendant confirms animosity in her relationship, confirms the altercation with Marietta Sullivan. Remember the Sullivan sisters in Aruba. Confirms her flirtatious.
Which, by the way, is not out. The other day, Hank Brennan said he was not planning.
Yeah, he said we're not getting into that. He said
unless the defense opened the door to it.
Yes, that's what he said. So this is kind of a collateral attack on that. I don't know. Confirms her flirtatious text with Brian Higgins. Confirms she was angry with John O'Keefe and convinced that John may have been cheating on her. So that's kind of the foundation for some of the statements they think they will be able to use.
Yeah, and so what? Quite frankly, if she's flirting with somebody else, why is she going to go kill the boyfriend, right? I mean, murder. This is not just a manslaughter case. This is a murder case. They're saying she intentionally did this.
Yep, and I've said before, get rid of that top charge, you got a case. So 8, contrary to representations made to the court on March 18th, way back on March 18th, the defendant admits that on March 17th, the aired episode that she used an intermediary, this is important too, to share discovery with Aidan Carney. Then with permission of her defense counsel, shared public information, presumably all discovery provided by the defense that would ordinarily not be deemed public due to the investigatory nature of the prosecution. Well, they're assuming that. It's to be determined, I suppose.
We found paragraph 8, though. You and I found paragraph 8. There it is.
Yeah, that's paragraph 8.
Yeah.
And then there's a statement she makes that I didn't highlight everything. There was so much on here. Jen McCabe, it's me or her. Either I'm going down, Jen, or you are. This is clearly Karen Reed kind of playing up the moment, right?
Right.
But
And
so what?
By the way,
So what?
by the way, I think what somebody points out is absolutely correct. You saw this. She admits to ordering the drinks, not necessarily consuming the 6
Yes.
drinks, right?
In fact, she went into some great detail, some of which I really don't remember from the first trial, where she was combining drinks. Like at one point, she had in one glass what she estimated to be 3 drinks. One was a shot, and the other 2 were more normal mixed drinks. So what was consumed is kind of murky, and
Right.
that gets us back to that whole blood draw that we've talked about in the retrograde serum that allows you to figure out.
Right.
I took your blood at 7 in the morning. Let's guess what it was at 12:30. That's the science. Let's see. Okay, yeah, this part here, 9. This is very interesting. This is the glass stuff. For example, the defendant's statement that John O'Keefe exited her vehicle holding her vodka soda drink. That she clearly saw John's body from Carrie Roberts' vehicle, and that she pulled a small piece of glass from John O'Keefe's nose. So what she says is that she had set this, whatever drink she took from the waterfall bar, she put down in the drink holder. When he left the vehicle, he took her drink. Now, is it a big deal that he took her drink and that's what he had in his hand, not his own drink? No. I mean, substantively, so what? But it is a different story, and that's what they're pointing out here. This is the first time we've heard that it was her drink glass that he took out of the vehicle.
Yeah, but it's her drink glass that maybe he's drinking also out of it. I mean,
who knows?
He's holding a glass. The point that he's holding a glass, right? And that's where some of those cuts can come. But those cuts on the arm that are equal parallel in different directions, they didn't come from no polycarbonate light. That's for sure.
Yeah, well, that's a double. I was going to say double-edged sword, but that's too much cutting. That's you have to prove that it was shattered to the degree that it could cause those cuts. So to me, it's a 2-phase analysis. A, could the light have been shattered to that effect? And we've talked about it many times, shown many pieces. And if so, then could it have cut his arm? I just can't fathom somebody's arm hitting that lens, shattering it, and being cut simultaneously based on a car backing into them, even if it's at 24 miles an hour, as the prosecution suggests. I had to take a hammer to my light here. And it's funny, since I did that almost a year ago, we showed that.
Right.
Somebody's done it again more recently, and one-upped me because they plugged it into power so they can see how it affected the lighting. Damn it, I wish I'd thought of that. But the point I was making was just breaking the polycarbonate. That's something.
Right.
It took a hammer, direct blows.
Direct blows with a lot of force. Direct blows.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, not a lot of force. I'm pretty weak, but it took some force.
It took pretty good. You're hammering there away. Oh my God. And I think he's making contradictions that aren't contradictions, by the way. This is why you don't ever talk to cops, because they can take like one little word and say, oh, it's a contradiction, when it's really not a contradiction in terms of the main story, But this is her chance to testify. This documentary was her chance to testify because she's not going to take the stand. So,
and that's what she's saying here in basically paragraph 11, which quotes the Vanity Fair article. If I can get the entire truth, as articulated by the defendant, of this case out in the public forum, that to me is priceless. And then they reference the docuseries, which we just saw in the trailer. This film is my testimony. I want to say what happened exactly as it happened.
Yeah. Just the desire for the prosecutor to win here by breaching attorney-client privileges is beyond me. Why don't you go after Proctor when it started? Why don't you go after the Slimeball, who after 16 hours without an autopsy being done decided that Karen Reed was guilty of murder? Okay, why don't you go after him when he sold a text about her health, about her Crohn's disease, about everything else? Why don't you go after her when he said she should kill herself? Why don't you do that? I mean, you're so busy now. Why didn't they try to do proper job then and now? And that's what is, I've been a prosecutor. I know what it takes to try a good case. and I tried to do a good job morally and ethically, but not with this crap. Sorry.
So at the very end, Commonwealth expects to introduce the records at trial as evidence of the charges against the defendant. Furthermore, the defendant is entitled, look at how nice they are. The defendant is entitled to review these records in their entirety prior to trial. So how nice. How nice of you. So we'll see. I can't wait to see the fight that's going to be put up by the production company, right?
Yeah.
Thank you to Making It Count. That's very nice. Knowing Bev wants to dismiss AJ, denied Bettero now. Hank Brennan is going after Yannetti. It's as if they're dismantling Karen Reed's team. Karen's
they're trying to.
Yeah, they're trying. They're trying.
They're trying to. Thank you very much for that, to Making It Count. We really appreciate it. We have a lot of questions. We're almost 40 questions. I know you have to leave at 7, so but I will stay and I will answer every single one.
So let's see what we got here.
Why don't we start? Why don't we start by going through them if we can? Kaylee asked, "Do I still do criminal or civil?" I do both. I've been doing a lot more civil. I started also doing civil. I do civil rights work, discrimination work, and I made a lot of law on employment, civil rights, and discrimination work. And I do go back to that. I do that. I shouldn't say on the side, but last year, one of my biggest cases was actually a forensic reconstruction of a car accident for a very famous client. But so that my forensic work, because I tend to love forensic work, I've been doing it ever since I was a prosecutor, when I was assigned to the evidence unit. And so people think I just picked it up when I married my husband. No, I've been doing it my whole life. And
that was probably what brought you together.
It actually was. It's a quick story. What brought me together is I had a client who was shot in the back by a police officer. And I needed to get a second autopsy, and I didn't trust the medical examiner to come down with the truth. I wanted to make sure that, what really happened to him. And my former partner, who's now deceased, had worked with Michael Bodden and had brought him in on a major murder case. And they said, call Dr. Bodden. So I called Dr. Bodden and flew him in a helicopter, and that's how we met.
And the rest is history.
And the rest is history.
So,
I'm sorry, at the autopsy room. All right,
yeah.
And that you didn't
nothing is more
expect
romantic than a cadaver. Okay. Does denial with no comment mean it could be a procedural or technical denial and they need to refile? Well, that's why I always hate those kinds of just bare bones decisions, because what do you do with that? But the remedy, if you're going to try, would be a motion to reconsider, depending on when it's filed and when it takes place. Are you upset about something, dog? What is it?
Yeah, you have Domino. I had Tubi today. Tubi was actually throwing up today. He went out for a walk, and he and his dog walker had a croissant, and the croissant did not agree with Tubi. So Mom had to take time off and make some chicken and rice. All of you dog owners
oh my gosh,
know
the dog's eating better than I am.
Our dog eats better than almost anybody. Hi Domino, you're adorable.
Say hi. Say hi.
Adorable.
So that's my take on that. I interpret that as a motion for reconsideration, and your odds, as we've already discussed, not great, but you got to make the motion, and then if it becomes something that is ultimately a factor in the determination on the merits, then the appeal would be next.
Okay, Trooper Pooper, love your coverage. I'm the worst person to put these on up because of my nails.
Watch quickly. Who knows what's going to happen?
Because my nails hit the next one coming. So just bear with me. Love your coverage. Have you considered bringing attorney Nan Gallagher on your program? She gave you a shout out on Seeking Justice with Tom CPU and Boston Mike this morning. Nice. Well, thank you.
Yeah, I met Nan either last time or the time before when I was there when I met Will the Glarer.
Is she on the chat tonight, Nan? Are you there? I thought I saw her on the chat.
Well, we definitely would. Have we made some effort on that, Missy? If not, we should put that on the list.
I think what happened is we've been so busy. We've been trying to reach out. We've been crazy busy. When we have all these shows, we have these crimes to solve, all this stuff, and we've just this Karen Reed case is taking up everything, and that's why we made a concerted effort to try to get Ashley Merchant on a premiere episode where you could all chat just before we went live tonight. on it, because it's like it's sucking the air out of everything else that we do. But yes, we'd love it. But I think Nan is on the show. I think she was here. I thought I saw her.
She was?
Yeah, I think I saw her.
No, you just did it. You did it
Oh,
to
what did
me.
I do now?
You just did it to
What did
me.
I do again? What did I
Well,
do?
we were
Okay.
done with that one, so I went to this
All right,
one.
I'm going to let you control
From
this.
Thrilled. Do you believe this court case will change Massachusetts? Boy, there's so many things they could change and use this as an example of. We talked about the jury instruction issue. To me, that's huge. And the bigger question, though, with Massachusetts, because, you know, this is the way. In Massachusetts, this is the way. They have their own way of doing certain things, like objections. We're not going to give you the grounds. Sorry, it's a crapshoot. Take a guess.
It's the first,
and then I'm going to rule.
first thing I've ever been in. Usually they're requiring you to give the grounds because attorneys don't know the grounds, right?
Yeah, and no speaking objections. I'm fine with that. I don't need an argument, Mr. Lewin. I don't need that, you know, just because you
But
think
Your Honor, but Judge.
yeah, that leads to sanctions, as we know. So yeah, hopefully, and those are just two things that I would love to see changed as a result. Anything you can think of?
No, I think you've got the main ones, but you missed one. Welcome to the Upside World. Do you want to grab that one?
I think did we do that one or
no.
Oh, okay, no. We had. I know that name though, so we did have that person earlier.
Okay,
I have no problem.
Welcome to the Upside World. Do you think she spoke to her lawyers before doing this? Yes, absolutely.
No doubt.
No doubt. And probably they
were in it. They were in it,
and they probably negotiated the whole thing, because when you do this, by the way, you have to have separate counsel. You have to advise your client to get separate counsel on a negotiation. Excuse me.
Okay, so that brings up an interesting issue. That brings up an interesting issue, which I saw in some of the moving papers. I can't remember what now, but it was a reference to payment being made for the participation in the project. Now, having done this before, we never pay participants. Never. It's sort of a journalistic red line. Now, we do pay for material. We pay for photos. We pay for maybe home videos. But unless you're a part of the production as a producer, we're not paying you to do this. So the question is, did they get paid as producers? I can't remember the credits. I'd have to look at them again. But normally, you're not getting paid because you take part in a show like this.
Yeah, except that the money that is being negotiated through the third party to wherever it goes is usually used to pay attorneys' fees on these. I mean, just let you know.
Well, attorneys' fees.
I don't know that's the case.
Attorneys' fees, maybe, but I think the reference I read was that they were somehow being compensated for the interviews, which is a whole different thing.
I see. But not realizing Hank would pull this, but I don't think. Look, this was started a long time ago, right? This whole, because it had episode. You know, I think it was started before Hank Brennan actually got into the case. This whole negotiation, right?
Which part? Which negotiation?
About the being on the project, because the question had a second part, not realizing Hank would pull this.
Oh, okay.
I don't think Hank was quite involved yet.
No, he definitely was not. This is, remember, again, for those who haven't seen it, this tracks everything up through the hung jury of trial number 1. So he was not even a thought then, because Lally was, in theory, the guy who was going to get the victory.
Right. Question, I think we've answered this when we were discussing, do you think they will hurt defense's case?
Which one are you on now?
Wendy Wright. I think we've answered it, but not this question. We discussed this when we were talking.
Oh, okay.
Do you think this recent documentary will hurt the defense's case? Brennan is going to use every detail he can to make an argument. He certainly is.
Yep, and he's using it to pierce the attorney-client privilege, which is, that's some serious shit, as they say.
Okay, this is a great question too. Kimberlina 15. Why is this trial still moving forward when Proctor fired and his hands are all over that investigation? Good question.
Yeah, that's, these days that's become a rhetorical question because everybody's asking it and there's no answer. The answer is they should not be. The answer is they don't have the evidence, at least up through the first trial. They don't have the evidence to prove beyond a reasonable doubt the guilt of the defendant, except perhaps count 2.
Well, except for that they were pretty hung on count 2, right?
Well, we've heard all kinds of numbers.
Things, right?
I've heard 9-3 in favor of guilt. So we don't know. We don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. But yeah, I think this is. You have those. You're never going to get over those Sally Port videos and all sorts of stuff. I think it's just really really dirty to continue a dirty investigation. And I'm wondering, again, I asked that question, is the prosecution moving forward without him? I think they're going to try to move forward without calling him.
Oh, I think you're right. I think you're right, but he's going to show up because the defense will bring him in. Mama Bug 107. How do they plan on getting all this video stuff in without the reporter to authenticate it, i.e. Ted Daniel interview?
Okay, Legal Eagle.
Oh. Well, who says they're not going to have the director brought in, to talk about the production, the interviews, the prep, the agreements between the parties?
They're not going to come. They're not going to be subject to. All right, let's go backwards. The Ted Daniels one interview, right? And then you had this. Those people were in California. They're not going to be subject to a subpoena in Massachusetts. I don't see it. Maybe you can get documents, but you're not going to get the people. You're going to have no jurisdiction over people.
It'll be interesting because then, assuming they get what they need visually, that's what they're looking for.
How do they get it in?
How do they get it in?
How do they get it in? Or you can get people in to say, "Is this what aired? Is this what aired on Netflix?" You can call somebody from Netflix. Is this what aired? Yes, this is what aired. This is an
ID. I don't want to give Netflix any
or ID.
grief.
I'm sorry, ID. Right,
yeah.
ID. This is what aired. So you can do that. Ted Daniel was going to say, "Yeah, is this the interview that aired?" Yes, but that's all you're going to get. Is this the interview that aired? The defense may even agree to that. All right, but that's all you're really going to get.
That's true. And to me, so what? I mean, that's not the problem. It's the scope that goes beyond all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And that's what they're trying to do. And maybe they're just rattling people's cages. That's Brennan does that.
Yeah, he likes to rattle. Moni Vecchione, who appoints the judges in Massachusetts? I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know if they're appointed or elected.
They are appointed. Yeah,
appointed.
We've talked about, we were talking about the whole Judge Bev factor, how she's seemingly very comfortable in all of these decisions she makes because apparently somebody above her who either appointed her or appointed the person who appointed her, they all seem to be in sync because I don't think voters would put her back on the bench. So they are appointed there.
Popular right now. Kay Schmidt, we already thanked you, but we can't thank you enough. Can't thank you enough for those gifted 5 membership. Cannot thank you. You're always doing that. We thank you. Thank you. It's great.
Check this out.
Okay. Did I miss something? Okay.
Oh, I don't know. We didn't do this one. Did you notice how different?
No, we didn't do this one.
You notice how different the Turtle Boy judge treated Hanky? So different compared to Bev interrupting him and putting him in his place. And that was Judge who? Judge
Kositsky.
Very good. Bless you. Yes. Gesundheit.
But he then ruled sort of against him.
He split the baby. He kind of tried to split the baby.
Unlike the judge that he had previously who was on vacation, remember, in Staunton County. In Staunton County, who was really, really put the screws to asking some questions. So, but yeah, he split the baby, and so we'll see. I don't think Turtle Boy is really concerned about what's in his phone because he was acting as a journalist, and he's been tweeting about it. He
poo-pooed the decision. Did you see? And we're going to talk to him next week.
Yes,
we haven't picked a day and time yet. But he's agreed.
And then when we talk to him, let me just tell you, I will be attacked on my personal X account by trolls. So I'm going to have all of you come help me because for some reason they didn't go after Michael. They didn't go after Justice Serve TV. But the Troll City and the bots came out. How dare we interview Aidan Carney? He's in this case. He's a player in this case. How dare you not interview him?
Yeah, we'd be happy to interview, Hanky.
Anybody.
Yeah. Anybody wants to come on?
Yeah,
no problem.
Morrissey, any of the prosecutor, Lally, we'll interview Proctor. If you want to come on, we'll interview the Proctor family. You want to come in, we'll interview you. No problem. Just come on. Let us know. Send us a text. We're easily findable. Okay. Welcome to the Upside World again. Why on the questionnaire they said she killed him and not allegedly? I don't have the question. Well, I do have the questionnaire.
Well, we don't have the new questionnaire. We have the one from last time.
You used to have it. Mine's over there on my desk on the TV desk that I used.
It's on the TV desk.
It's on the TV desk. I don't. I don't know. I don't know the answer to this because I can't look at the question Upside World. I'll take a look at it and hopefully by Monday we'll have an answer for you.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that. I'm gonna keep it starred so we know it's there. Okay. All right. Tammy
Another pile.
Glassenap Simon. Explain why Hank Brennan, that is allowed to keep requesting evidence and submitting motions. I thought all evidence was supposed to be turned in. Welcome to the world that the prosecution can keep finding and turning evidence in, but the defense, gosh forbid, they want to have an expert to respond to an expert that just was listed by the prosecution, and they get like slapped on the wrist. We're going to try this case April 1st. So
Yep.
it's
So
what
keep
happens
those
in most
motions
cases.
coming right up till the end.
It happens in almost every case. I'm telling you, judges, I don't care who they are, for the most part, there's a question, should sit down on the side of the prosecutors many times, because when you're a defense attorney, that's what you feel like. You feel like you're doing everything wrong and you're getting yelled at, and the prosecution, just like we saw in ASAP Rocky with a 25-page ballistics report that had been done a year, that's given just 5 hours before they're about to open to a jury, and the judge says, well, I'll give you a couple days and I'll pay for if you want an expert, because you're so good, pat you on the back, you're so good, defense attorney, you can deal with it. And so that's what happens. We defense attorneys think that the judicial system is biased against defendants, because let's face it, most defendants are guilty. Okay, most defendants are guilty, but when you have a situation where 40% of your murders today are unsolved, you're clearly not finding enough guilty people. And when you have a situation that all people are being wrongfully convicted and let out of jail every single day, there's a new one, we're clearly convicting the wrong people. So there's something wrong with the system.
I just scanned through the questionnaire again. That's the old one. The new one is still in process. So I didn't see a specific reference to her killing him. We talk about the victim. We talk about all kinds of stuff, but not her specifically killing John O'Keefe. So,
but welcome to Upstate World. If you have a clip of it, just take a screenshot and send it to us, and we'll take a look at it.
And again, this is the last year's, the one for this upcoming trial, still in the works. Yeah. Oh shit! It's 11 after the hour. I got to go.
You got my house to go, but I'm going to stay on and answer the questions.
Thanks everybody for joining. I appreciate it.
So if you don't mind losing Michael and have me, I'll do the best I can. Okay.
I'm sure you won't miss a beat. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll be trickling out some of the stuff we've done over this last week in little nuggets that are easier to chew and enjoy.
And we're going to be on the air streaming Monday at 9 when they're back in court.
Are they back Monday or Tuesday?
I thought it was Monday. Missy, do you remember when it was?
I thought it was Tuesday at 11, but
maybe it's whenever it is.
There may be an emergency hearing on Monday. Related to some of this stuff. Anyway, we'll be covering it no matter what. So we'll try to do the right thing.
We'll let you know.
And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Okay. All right. Let me, Montevecchio, let me put this in. Now that I don't have Michael, I don't have to worry if I lose a question. Could Hank be promised to be appointed as a judge or DA if he tries his case? Yeah, he could be promised to be appointed as a judge. I don't know if he wants to be a DA, even though, I mean, I think that if he's certainly, obviously he's connected to be able to be appointed by Morrissey on this case as special prosecutor. He must be extremely connected. So I'm sure he could be promised as something. I don't think he's going to be wanting to run for office. So although you never know. Okay. Let's see. Tammy Glassenap Simon again. Cannot, or is there anyone to come and stop this and cannot, or is there anyone to come and stop this and bank? I need you to flesh that out just a little bit. But I think what you're asking is, can someone stop this insanity here? Well, I guess the Attorney General could come down and say something, but they're not. And so the only one who could would be Morrissey to say, okay, we're gonna stop this. We're not going to go forward. And that is not going to happen, clearly. Okay. Momo Shark, Court TV said Judge Cannoni ruled on TV text, but wasn't that in front of another judge? Yeah, what they said is that, and we were looking for an order, we couldn't find one, that the other judge said that the phone could be transferred over, okay, on the Karen Reed, but that somehow she then had to accept it. She had to accept that transfer from the other judge and agree with it. And they said that was done, although we did not see any order on that. But she's not going to undo that, of course. She's going to allow that. We just don't know what the texts are, if there are any, that are going to be found and shown on that phone. according to Aidan Carney, if you watched his page today, he showed pictures of what he says all his texts were encrypted because he used Signal. They never texted on their phones unless it was on Signal, and what you would see on Signal is an encrypted message that no one can read. So we'll keep looking to see, but that's our understanding as to what had to happen. Okay, gray space. Okay. Those quotes both suggest an oral conversation. So how does that open up her text? Yeah, I agree with you. That's the whole point of the scope. It suggests that maybe she was having an oral discussion and thinking and asking. And it's something that even they argued at trial. Remember when there was a questioning about whether or not, because no one put any confession in any document. And there was a question, well, couldn't she be asking, and I think it was even argued by them, asking and ruminating, could I have done this? Could I have done this? Could I have hit him? But that she's not admitting to she's hitting him. And I don't know how it opens up. Although, if there's a way, I'm sure that Judge Cannoni is going to find it right now. Although this may be one area she's pretty sensitive on, attorney-client privilege, because it is when you start opening up an attorney-client privilege and you start suggesting that there's been a knowing and intelligent waiver without a written document suggesting a knowing and intelligent waiver, it may not go very, go very well with the Massachusetts bar. And so she may have to think about this one a little bit. Okay. What has Vanita Ashton, what has happened to all the other YouTubers today? Quiet. Well, I don't know. We're here. The funny thing is Michael Bryan and I said last night, well, we'll do the Ashley Merchant interview. We'll do it as a premiere so all of you can chat and all. And, if anything breaks, we'll be available to run a 6 o'clock live. And here we are. And I have to give Michael obviously Michael Bryan is taking Lisa out. I'm giving my husband credit because he's probably in the other room starving at this point. I don't think he's had a meal to eat all day today on a Friday night. We thought that, maybe we'd take the day off. But no, we're here for you because we know you'd want us to be here for you. So spread that word. Okay, so question. All right, I need to thank you very much. Let me just get to this one. All right. Mrs. Mia Wallace, question. Why would Brennan close his law firm to try this case given the weak evidence? Is there an ulterior motive? Did he actually close the law firm? Or I thought the law firm was still open, but he's just not taking cases right now. Because, this is high profile. If you convict this person, you're a hero on both sides of the fence, right? You're a defense attorney. You're a great attorney. Maybe then he would be looking for some type of political appointment as an attorney general in the future, because he showed that he could be both a defense attorney and a prosecutor. So I don't know if there is an ulterior motive, or whether it's just a close friend who said, look, we need you to do this. We need a conviction of this. Maybe he represents, maybe he gets work from police officers. Maybe who knows who suggest him to people that are defendants. You remember he did represent Whitey Bulger. He had to get that, he got that case by appointment, but why? Okay. Sharon Logue. Okay. Question. Does he not have to cite in his motion some case where this was allowed? Well, you would think that Judge Cannoni would ask him for that, right? Because she had said to the defense when they're asking for anything, I need a Massachusetts case. I want a Massachusetts case. He's going to say it's a unique situation, and therefore no cases come up like it, and therefore he doesn't need to cite to anything. So that's where you go with that. But remember, the judges can do whatever they want as long as they think that, as long as they think it's going to help decide that they feel at this point should have the evidence. Buzzcat, have you ever seen a judge run a courtroom in such a biased manner? We've been through this. As a defense attorney, let me tell you, always feeling that the judges are absolutely biased in favor of the prosecutor. As I said, there's been a couple times I think that I have probably been close to contempt, where I've said, why don't you take your robe off and come sit with the defense? I mean, that doesn't really go over very well. And then you get called to sidebar. But yes, look at YSL. Look at Judge Glanville and YSL. Talk about biased. Oh my gosh, 2 years. 2 years, a year picking a jury, a year. And then it turns out it was all garbage, and then people had to take deals just to get out of jail on the same day, and they'd been held without bail. I mean, that's the norm. That really is the norm. This is the norm, and it's only now that people are coming to realize it, to realize how courts are being run. They're paying more attention to it as more people become involved in the court system and family members become involved. Java time. How do you think Judge Bev will rule on this? She denied the motion from the defense to obtain Brian Albert and Brian Higgins' phones. Make it make sense. I can't make it make sense. I think she should throw this right out the door and say, look, you can use whatever in the documentary, Mr. Brennan, you can use that, and if you want to put that on, as long as you can validate that that's the documentary, you can use it. But I think to go into an attorney's text phone on the scope of what's in a documentary on this, where she's just ruminating about what she possibly said to him, it has no evidentiary value. And quite frankly, it's more prejudicial than probative. That's her easy way out. And that's why I think she should rule that way. But you know what? She hasn't been going with the defense too much lately. So we shall see, shan't we? If I were the judge, I'd know how I'd rule. Carla Benink, I think it's Bannink. Is there any way the defense lawyers can make a complaint about Judge Beverly Cannoni's bias ruling about the ARCA debacle? She accused of unethical conduct. Can they protest after the trial? And you're from Holland. Thank you for watching from Holland. We really appreciate your watching. And this case has garnered all over the world. That really everyone is watching it. The time to have done it may have been then, except that she didn't do it in front of the jury. Usually, you could make a strong stand against a judge, and we did that, by the way, in the Aaron Hernandez case in Massachusetts and Suffolk County. And we felt the judge had demeaned one of our attorneys in front of the jury, and the judge actually ended up apologizing and bringing the jury in and giving them instruction that anything that he said was not meant to be anything against the attorneys. But it's hard when really what the result of what she did and calling them biased and unethical has really inured to the detriment of Karen Reed, right? Because it's in front of the TV cameras. So that really is a real problem. I mean, I think it's a problem, but I don't think, unless they're going to file a complaint against her, which they won't win, especially since she's head of the judges there in that county. She's statewide. She was in charge of doing the rules, redoing the discovery rules, which she did a great job on, by the way. All right. She's very well thought of by the bench up there. So defense really has probably nowhere to go on that issue. And that's really a tragedy. I think she should have run that whole issue with the sealed transcript in her chambers, sealed it, and then no one outside, none of us would have any inkling that she was trying to cut the defense off at the knees, is how I'm going to put it. But they're not backing down, are they? All right, so let's look at this. Maria Rose. Do you think the judge will allow Easter, the defense expert who was a retired FBI agent? I think she has to. I think she's going to limit his scope, although here's what she could say. He is an FBI agent. FBI really doesn't investigate murders that much. They may teach about investigative techniques. And therefore, since he has no knowledge specifically of being involved in Massachusetts, except for what he's read, I'm going to limit what he can testify to. I think she should allow him. We bring in experts all the time from other counties, other states, other jurisdictions to opine upon proper procedures that are usually nationwide. For instance, I mentioned to you today, I was on taping Cheryl McCollum's Zone 7 podcast for audio. I think absolutely, if we were bringing her in to be an expert, would anyone have a problem with that? You shouldn't. But boy, did she express some kind of issue with thinking that then Hank Brennan was going to have to bring in somebody to then respond. Well, you know what the answer to that is exactly what Alan Jackson said. Do it. That's the first answer. The second answer is, if you'd done a good job in the first place, and if you'd done what you're supposed to have been doing, you wouldn't have need to consider whether or not you had to buttress your investigation into John O'Keefe's death. The problem is they did such a terrible job, and now they want to again cut the defense off at the knees to try to prevent Karen Reed from having a defense by eliminating any single expert she wants to bring in. So we'll wait and see. I think she may limit what he has to say. Okay, let's see where we're going next. Ms. Carrie Baby, do you think Judge Cannoni will actually do a full days this time around? Interesting. You know, the courts are, just so you know, they're bound a lot of times by union agreements as to when they can start and when they can end. In Hernandez, we ended every day at 4 o'clock. In a county in New Jersey, some of the counties in New Jersey, you have to end. You have to take your lunch period at a certain period of time, and you can't go over. So a lot of times they're bound by that. The only time they get an exception is usually when a jury is deliberating, to let the jury go on a little bit longer, or in states that have death penalty to let the days be a little bit longer. But yes, the courts tend to have a very shortened schedule, shortened day. And a lot of that has to do with union contracts. Also, and sometimes you have to understand judges are doing other things. They have other caseloads that they're dealing with. So they may have to do that from 9 to 10. So they'll start at 10. Or they may take an extra half an hour, or depending on whether or not the jury, lunch is being brought in for the jury, or the jury has to go out, they may give a longer jury time to eat. So don't be too hard on that. That's something that we all go through, and depending on the state and the county, your days can be really truncated. Drives us all crazy, by the way, but they can be truncated. Okay, so let me get rid of that star. Let's show this one. Marianne, do you think Karen Reed needs a Slimeball who thinks like Hank on her team? Interesting question. You know, I had a major client who hired a lawyer who represented somebody in the mob on the theory that if he played by the rules, he could not win in a system that he felt fixed was against the defense. All right. So I just throw that out to you. But no, I think her team is just fine. I think we have to do things right. And, you know, hopefully if we do things right, the whole system will be right. And people won't be able to get away with things that are being gotten away with. Now, the problem you have here is that somewhere along the line, Judge Cannoni, and I've said this over and over again, thinks that she was lied to or misrepresented to, or the jury was misrepresented to about the ARCA experts, even though they were hired by the feds, paid for by the feds, and then afterwards submitted a bill after trial to the defense, which of course you're going to pay because you're going to use them in the second trial. She thinks somehow that the defense did something that she thought was slimy, and that she has been letting them pay for that ever since. That's how I think this thing has been positioned. And yet when the prosecution comes in with new tapes and new videos and new everything else, they're just doing what they're just doing a good job of doing what the prosecutor has to do. So, and it's amazing because she was a public defender for, I think, 24 or 26 years, if I recall. So it's kind of amazing that the case kind of goes this way. And we'll see in the future whether or not it continues. Okay. Kimberlin, I said that before, and it's 3 A's, so I don't know how to pronounce at the end. It's at the 15. I apologize. Send us a text, and I'll get it right next time. Why the hell is this trial still moving forward with all the shit that has been revealed? That's a legal term, shit. Revealed from the last trial. Too much wrongdoing, and Proctor's hand are all over the investigation. Yeah, I agree. We all agree about that. Proctor's hand all over. I don't see how you can let it go on, especially when Yuri Buchanan, remember, he was on the stand attesting to the video, attesting to the fact that no one had touched that right rear tail light. And it turns out that the second day when Alan Jackson gets to question him, they find that the video is inverted, and unless Alan Jackson had brought it to the attention of the jury through cross-examination, Buchanan was not going to say anything. I think the whole case smells at this point. And I feel bad because the real, and if something did happen to John O'Keefe in that house, that's, you know, he doesn't get justice from that. If this were an accident that he fell and he fell backwards because he was drunk and cracked his skull, and it was just that no one's responsible, you know, then people are being are being, shall we say, blinded by that possibility too. But I agree with you. I think that's pretty bad. Avid Events. In Hernandez trial, did you all use an expert like Mr. Eater to speak about the investigation? By his closing, clearly laid out the efficient investigation. Okay, so there were three of us that tried the case. Jose did the opening and the closing. Ron Sullivan, who was a local, did a bunch of the local area, and I did all the forensic area in that. No, we didn't. And the reason why is because I am so involved in forensics. I had all the books from everybody, and I know what a proper investigation should be like. So I was able to cross-examine by using my knowledge and also a lot of published material that we had about the investigation. And there we had a street sweeper that came through the crime scene. Okay, that came through the crime scene, and no one said anything. Probably took away evidence, and we went after them. And that poor guy that I can't remember his name. Do you know the cops went after him, and eventually he lost his job? He testified for us. He was so honest. He was so wonderful. But I think the jury saw that if you have a crime scene that you've cordoned off, but that you let the street sweeper sweep through it, as you have bodies in the car and you're dragging the bodies there so disrespectfully. They had them in the car and they put them on the bodies. They put the car on a tow thing, and the bodies with sheets hanging out of the windows. It was just ridiculous. So I don't think we really even needed an expert there, because everybody could see that the investigation really was terrible in that case. Also, we were able to, with our forensic pathologist, Dr. Jamie Downs, show the trajectory of the shots through our in-court demonstration, indicated that Aaron could not be the shooter, and that's why he was acquitted of that. Remember, he had already been convicted of a murder, so the evidence had to be pretty weak to find Aaron not guilty, obviously, of a double homicide. And obviously we know what happened to Aaron afterwards. He was so thrilled that we cleaned his reputation up for his daughter that he ended up with a real tragedy of committing suicide in prison. And also he was outed for his sexual preferences right after he was acquitted, because people were so upset that happened. Just again, the justice system with a big failure. Okay, let me get this. Hold on, show. KTB, wait, this guy thinks there's a chance Karen hit him with her car. We're talking about possibilities. Michael Bryan said that's a possibility. Could there be a possibility? Could they possibly show that maybe could she have not hit him on the arm, but maybe nudged him, or could he have jumped back, fearful of the car in some way because he was drunk? He didn't see what he's doing. So we're talking about the possibilities of what the state could argue, and we tell you, we see it. We're going to tell you as we see it. We're not going to hold back. Do we think that she should be convicted? Absolutely not. But do we think that if the prosecution drops the top count and says, well, maybe, she actually nudged him and he fell over and she left him to die, could you possibly win on that? Well, I don't know. Is there any kind of marks on his knee? Is there any kind of marks on his body in the front that would indicate a car would hit him? I don't remember any. But, in this case, we never know what the prosecution is going to come up with, because the medical examiners both indicated that the cause of death was undetermined. And I would hate to see them change their opinion going into the second trial. Wouldn't you? Just ridiculous. All right. So, and I'm not saying that. I don't think they will. Okay. So let's go past that. We're going to hide that comment right there. We're going to go to the next comment. Wayne, wouldn't unaired footage of Karen talking to her attorney be privileged? Yeah, well, it depends, because the theory is that if there's somebody else present and you're talking to somebody else, the privilege is automatic. There is no privilege. So if you are my client and I bring you in here, and then I call my girlfriend in and I say, hey, come on in, meet such and such, and you and I continue to talk about your case, what you say to me then is not privileged, because the third person in here is not a member of the law firm, is not my assistant, is not my keyboarder, or anything of that sort. So that privilege in that situation could possibly then be waived. Okay, CLK. All right. MSP, Massachusetts Police took Karen Reed's phone on 12922 at 3:30. How would there be text that might be on 12922? Well, she said that she texted right away, that she possibly texted right away. I'm not sure about the 3:30. Okay, could you check that, CLK? If that was in the afternoon before they took her to the hospital, I think that's when they took her, or before she went to the hospital, right? That was in the hospital. I thought it was 7:30 at night. But yeah, there could be texts on her phone right away if she thought that she were in trouble. If somebody were looking for her, the police were saying they want to talk to her. She went back to the scene. She was giving somebody CPR. People are around. There may be texts to Yannetti. I just don't know. Somebody, it would be great if you did a spreadsheet, and then next time we come on, we'll look at your spreadsheet as to what the texts are. That's, by the way, that's 2B. He is also upset with this case. 2B is our dog. 2B the poodle. If you don't know him on my Instagram, 2B rules our life. Okay. So, but that would be great. Okay. So, Montevecchione again. Montevecchione, yes, she's not under oath in these videos that affect anything. It only affects the weight that the jury can put on the test. On if the prosecution plays that, it affects the weight that can be put on it, because you can say that she's not under oath on that. So that's what it affects. It doesn't affect the issue of the privilege we're talking about. Okay. And we did show this again. We thank you again, making it count. Thank you. That they're trying to dismantle the case, and thank you for donating. Yes, right now it's the prosecution. It's going after everything, and they're getting their way as we're seeing it right now. Trying to dismantle the cases, trying to dismantle experts. It just really, it's just outrageous. I mean, for those of us watching it, we're not happy with it either. Okay, thank you. And again, I just want to point out, thank you again for that donation. Okay, Robert Shank, will this be clear showing of bias if Judge Beverly Canonian grants this motion? Well, you're all going to think it is, isn't it? But no one's going to find that's bias on the upper courts. Especially if she limits it to the scope of maybe, you can let that in if she said that she was talking to her attorney and any text relating to that. Although I think that would be a true mistake, and I think that if she's convicted, you know what? I hadn't thought about this, but I think the Bar Association may want to come in on amicus on this issue of waiving attorney-client privilege. If I were the Bar Association, and if I were Yannetti, I'd be on the phone with them right now as soon as this was filed. Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's. But you kind of got me on that, thinking about it. Hold on a second. Let me see. As you see, my nails get in the way here. I turned over a lot less. We were duped for a $4.99 donation. Thank you very much. How did Hanky Boy, that's Hank Brennan, get away with using Karen's case number and not having the defense at the table at the start of the hearing with Turtle Boy yesterday? Yeah, that was really weird, right? The defense had to come in there, and they had Hank Brennan should have waited. The common courtesy would have been to wait, okay? Would have absolutely been to wait and say, Your Honor, the defense has already indicated they're going to have a say in this, that they're going to have opposition to this. This was discussed at the case management conference. We don't think Your Honor should start. But he started anyway. And that's why I said that yesterday. I was willing to give him the benefit of the doubt until we started pulling that, and then he started digging at the defense. And I thought that was really, really bad. I mean, I've dealt with attorneys like that. And that shows me some kind of morally deficiency. In my opinion, for the attorneys I've dealt with, I'd rather them be up front and say, hey, judge, stop. Okay. And defense, and then the judge says, you don't have a right to, you may not have standing to be there. And Alan Jackson has to get up and say, Your Honor, this is under my client's case number, under my client's case number. Okay. It really was, that really was a sleazy move, wasn't it? All right. And I tell you, I call it like we call it like we see it here. Okay. All right. To making it count. Again, thank you for your donation. Thank you so much. Will the jury's form be updated in 2.0? Yes, hopefully the jury's form will be updated. The only question I don't have is the answer I don't have is if she's going to charge them like they did in ASAP Rocky, members of the jury, if you are able to come to a conclusion or on one count and are hung on another count, let me know. Okay, let me know, because apparently in Massachusetts you don't have to do that. So. Will the form be updated? Yes, I think the form, or the slip as they call it. They call it the verdict form in every other state. They call it the slip in Massachusetts. It should be updated, but also so should her jury charge be updated. And also, if they do come out and say they have are hung on any count, but I think she should charge them off the bat. And she can take it right from the ASAP Rocky case. If you come to a conclusion on any of the charges, but you can't come to a conclusion on others, let me know. What's the big deal about adding that? Okay. It's just ridiculous. Okay. Anti-Afro Svengalis. Okay. Defense attorneys never thought prosecutors would hit up the U.S. attorneys about conversations. I think that's conversations, convos between ARCA witnesses and defense attorneys. Lawyers must be honest even when no one is looking. That was awful. Very interesting. So what you're assuming is that there was conversations between the defense attorneys and the FBI and the Justice Department, possibly about the ARCA witnesses. Okay. And yeah, if there were conversations, sure. Then the defense attorneys had to own up to that. They had to give that over. The problem is that we don't know if those conversations existed, right? We have no idea if they existed because the feds, when they gave over the TUI material and everything to both sides, they didn't give over any notes of any conversations, any reports of conversations. So were there conversations? I don't know the answer to that, but you were absolutely correct. If there were conversations and the defense did have input into what the prosecutors were going to do at the Justice Department, which, if you ever know dealing with the Justice Department, they don't really, you don't have much input. They'll listen to you, but they won't, they don't really, like people telling them what to do. Okay. But yes, everyone has to be honest to the court. Everyone has to be honest in their dealings with the court. So I will say that to you right now. And if it turns out that they weren't honest with the court, then they deserve the rancor that they're getting from Judge Bev in the courtroom. So we'll see. Hopefully we'll see next week one way or another. The easy way is to call the U.S. Attorney's Office for the judge to do it. Maybe that they'll deal with her. I mean, just she can pick up the phone a lot easier and call them. Joanne M. Jetty Platypus. Thank you. New member. Yay. Welcome to Justice Served TV. As I said, usually there's two of us, but yeah, right now you have me, and I do have a little experience trying cases. So hopefully I can answer your questions. But thank you for joining us. And Zeldabot, again, thank you for your donation. Do you, Karen, know if Karen has evidence since Janetti named Brian A, Brian H, and Colin Alpert? Just saw Microdot's latest video. It was fire. I haven't seen the Microdot's latest video. I just got tuned into Microdots the other day when I saw some of their stuff. It was interesting. But he did name them as what he thought possible suspects. And how did this go in the defense's mind? We're not naming them here at Justice Served TV, and you're not naming them. We're just repeating that he named them. Because the prosecution was saying, look, the defense is actually contradicting themselves, because they said they had no idea who may have killed John O'Keefe, yet that's their defense, that somebody killed John O'Keefe that was inside the house. But they never named any, but if they have no idea, they have to name somebody. And what the defense is saying, is, we don't know who did it. We just know that it was somebody in the house, and it had to be one of these three people. So they were trying to avoid the fact that the prosecution was saying that they were being deceitful again in what they were telling people in the public eye and to the press jury. So good question, really good question. Thank you very much for that question. All right, hold on a second. Okay, let's go to the next question. Zelda Bot, I just have to unstar you. Apologize, Ashley and Nell. We talked about that. They took her phone on 129. She was arrested on 22. Yeah, she was arrested. Yeah, right. She wasn't arrested right away, but they had named her. Remember, Proctor said 19 hours afterwards, she was it. She had killed him. She had made a determination. This was a murder, even though there wasn't any autopsy, there wasn't any homicide determination, that this was an absolute murder, right? And therefore, that's why they were taking her phone and all, because they were convinced that she was guilty. most ridiculous determination in the world. You hadn't interviewed anybody. You didn't even go interview into the house. You didn't go interview anybody. You have a dead body on somebody's front lawn, and you don't interview anybody in the house and say, hey, what'd you see out there? Can we come in? Can we see if there's any evidence in here? You know, a judge would grant a warrant like that in a New York mini-second. Shy Gal again. Thank you, Nick Rocco. Okay, I'm just putting that up there. Okay. Shy Gal, thanks for the donation. Okay. Let me go back up here because your questions are coming fast and furious. I may have to put this, if you don't mind, I'm going to put this actually on my lap since it's a Friday. I hope you're being a little casual and grabbing all of your questions here, if you don't mind. Let's go back up to the top here. All right. Okay, well, thank you, AJK, Linda, and JSTV team for this Friday evening wrap up. Really appreciate you saying that because, you know, we have all these moderators and all Missy Mayhem. There's everybody who's doing moderating and doing this, and they're doing it for you. I mean, they're doing it for you because you are our true crime family, and they're trying to help this channel grow. We're young, but we think we're pretty mighty, and we also have a lot more experience in terms of trying high-profile cases than many people out there, with a lot of good results. So, you know, I always tell my friends, if you commit murder, call me. You know, and they always laugh about that. They think that's a funny joke. You know, don't commit murder, please. Okay. Gray Space. I'm real curious about Hank. Maybe not calling the ME. Yeah, isn't that interesting? He's not going to call. He wants to cross-examine the state's medical examiner. Isn't that interesting? Well, let's see how that goes over. We'll see whether or not they try to get her to change her opinion at all, put any pressure on her, because she didn't say and would not determine that it was a homicide. Let's see what the real story is. But that really is, yeah, I mean, that really is kind of an interesting issue, isn't it? All right, hold on a second. My nails ran ahead of me again. All right. Okay, let me go back to, we have a number of starred questions I did not get to, I think. All right, let's see. Missy, I think my nails got ahead of me and I eliminated the starred questions. All right. Let's see. Let's go down to the bottom. Let me see if I can get some of the newer questions in here. You all have such great questions and all. Karen G says, Hank wants to use a neurologist. Yeah, he does. He wants to use, he made a point that it was a neurosurgeon, and he's trying to get around having a forensic pathologist, right? A medical examiner testify. And an interesting thing is that neurosurgeon, he wouldn't be able to sign the death certificate under law, because he's not qualified to sign a death certificate under Massachusetts law. Everybody's into Massachusetts law, and the judge, how they do it there. Well, how they do it there, well, you know, how they do it there is that a neurosurgeon from Florida can't sign a death certificate for a suspicious death that's being investigated by the medical examiner's office. So, Missy, I see you're trying to find the starred questions. I apologize. Okay, yes, Shakespeare says, yeah, but they are kind of pretty nails. I mean, they are kind of spring. They are kind of pretty, you know. But let's see if we can find this. And I think, Shy Gal, you we're thanking Nick Rocco because he put in an inordinate amount of effort as a fundraiser for Karen Reed. That's wonderful that you're recognizing each other on our chat, and you're coming here to recognize each other. All right, Missy, do we have any other starred questions? Anything else that you guys want? Just redo your question right now at the bottom if you have something that I haven't touched upon, because I would like to answer all these. I mean, I would stay here and answer almost every single one of these questions if I had this. I see there's one starred coming up. Okay, here we go. Discworld Edge Witch. Okay. Hi, Discworld Edge Witch. Why doesn't the defense make more of an issue with the timeline not making sense? Karen was on John's Wi-Fi before the alleged incident happened, 12:45, according to Lally, Jen, and Trooper Paul. You know, it's interesting because the defense has their theory of this case, right? And their theory is not changing, and they may have reasons we don't know. How, you know, running defense teams a lot, but they're not moving on their theory. They may think maybe if they move, something else could happen to them. But there's a lot of things that if I were coming into this case, not a lot of things, there's some things that I would say, why don't we look at differently? Because every lawyer tries cases differently. But the defense team's done a great job until this point, bringing in Mr. Alessi, or as Hank Brennan calls him, Alessi. So I always hear him say he's Mr. Alessi when he checks in, and then Hank Brennan calls him Alessi. I don't know if that's purposeful or not purposeful. Okay, so let's show this one. Despite the look on my face, you're still talking. Uh-oh, I am still talking. Okay, I don't know. That's not from me. I know. Am I wrong? Or Brennan lied to the judge yesterday when he said he didn't know the name of the third party, but he added her to the amended witness list. Anyone else check that? I thought he said third party, but he wasn't naming her because there were still some issues with regard to he did know the name of the third party. There's no doubt about that. So if he said he didn't know the name of the third party, that was absolutely, shall we say, not correct. Okay, because it's in a pleading, right? It's there in a pleading. So yeah, but the problem is, you know what? You can't, in front of a jury, you can't say, hey, look, the attorney told you something that wasn't correct usually, because what the judge will just say, whatever the attorney says, it's not evidence. The jury should listen to the witness from the witness stand, and whatever comes out of that witness's mouth is evidence. Okay, so that's usually what goes on, as you know, and you've heard it. Okay. All right, let's, when a witness is impeached, this is from Momo Shark. When a witness is impeached, how does the jury know what that means? That is such a really good question, okay? Because we turn and use all this technical legal language all the time, and I'm not sure they necessarily do. Lawyers will say, well, I want to use this for impeachment purposes. And I know people who say, well, what does that mean in this case? Does that mean that they lied? Does that mean that they're mistaken? What does it really mean? And what it really means depends on the context of what the statement that is being shown to be different is, because all impeachment means is that it's a different statement. It doesn't necessarily mean it's a lie. It could mean somebody remembers something differently. So the answer to that is not necessarily so. All right, let's go to the next one. Joanne M. Jetta Again, I'm getting good at this name. That's a really good handle, by the way. If that's your real name, it's also great. But if it's not your real name, it's a good handle. If a witness testimony changes from the first trial, can they be impeached? Here we go. We're at the impeachment question. Yes. Can the trial transcript, if you have a certified trial transcript, be brought up? And could that transcript be read as actually, you can actually do it by reading it to the person, or you could actually read the transcript in. There's different ways to say that the witness has said different things. Lawyers generally don't like to give the witness a chance to explain why their testimony from a first trial or from a first deposition or from something that's sworn under oath is different. So they'd like to confront them and say, didn't you say in the first trial, isn't that different? And then it's up for the other attorney to try to explain why is different, because they don't know from the witness stand they can explain why it's different. It just may be just, every time the neuroscientists will tell you, every time you recount something and it goes in and it comes out of your brain and you talk about it, what is left in your brain may be a little bit different and when you start pulling it back out than what you first said. And it's just the way your brain functions. It's how your brain functions. It's very interesting. Think about the times you've said, I can't remember something, and you're like, oh, or you say something that you did something and you didn't do it, or you didn't do something and you did do it, or you said, I know I left my phone in the bathroom, and yet you come into the office and the phone's right here, and said, oh, I guess I didn't leave it in the bathroom, because your mind works in different ways, and how your mind works and what affects it is really interesting to read about. Okay, Higgins, Shy Gal. Hi, Shy Gal again. Higgins had immunity in the first trial. Is that automatic for the retrial? Yeah, it's going to be pretty automatic for the retrial. They're not. It's not being taken away from him. The question is, does he get bigger immunity for other things if something else happens? Right. I don't know why you want to give it. Massachusetts loves to give immunity. They gave it in the Hernandez trial to all these witnesses too. They just love to give immunity. I don't know why. I've never seen a state that loves to give immunity so much. With regard to this is Nina 79 didn't she's talking about Hank Brennan lose Whitey Bulger's case. Yes, lost Whitey Bulger's case, and then Whitey Bulger was convicted. Everyone knew that he was going to be convicted. I think he was sent to a federal prison in Florida where he was killed by another prisoner. All right, some would say that he got his just desserts because, let's face it, Whitey Bulger was a pretty bad dude who was on the run for a long time and turned out to be an FBI informant. Okay, so at the same time, so really interesting. Yeah, you could read about it. When people attack me and they say, when they were attacking me last week about having Turtle Boy on, Dr. Aidan Carney on, interviewing him, they said we gave him credibility. No, we just asked him questions without an inflammatory manner. But when people attack me, I said, well, let me introduce you to Hank Brennan's client, Whitey Bulger. I mean, come on, let's be real. And I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the trolls that were attacking me for interviewing Aidan Carney. Oasis Cat, hi Oasis. Thank you for everything you do. You see those moderator things there? Why does Brennan, since the legal document says Hank Brennan when his legal name is Henry Brennan on his law license? Oh, isn't that interesting? Well, I don't know. Does he have a dad who was a different name and so they call the son different? I don't know. He says it's Hank Brennan on the documents, right? I'm looking. Let me pull out right now. I have his affidavits right here too. My name is Hank Brennan. I guess he likes to be known as Hank Brennan. All right. Very interesting, huh? So probably that's why everyone knows him. Let me pull this up. Anti-Afro Svengali. Yeah, we talked about that, right? That, before. So thank you again for that donation. Afton. Hi, Afton. Nice of you to join us. Thank you very much. Even if it was a text, the privilege belongs to Reed, right? So isn't it up to her what she shares and doesn't share? You're absolutely right. And that's why when we repeated and Michael Bryant, before he left, excuse me, as I have this on my, I'm casual like you guys today. I'm wearing jeans. You don't think lawyers wear jeans? And I'm wearing a sweater and I'm sitting on my office sofa. Yes, the actual statements, and Michael had put them up on the screen, that she made, those statements. And if she wants to talk about what she said to her attorney and what her attorney said to her in that limited capacity, she can waive that. That's the scope of the waiver. Anything else has to be knowing and voluntary. That to me does not waive anything else. It does not waive text messages with him. It does not waive anything. And this becomes not just a fishing expedition. This becomes an outright attack on the attorney-client privilege to do that. It also becomes, as I believe, again, an attack to try to get Karen Reed to drive a wedge between her and her lawyers by bringing this motion and all. And I think it's absolutely outrageous. But she has to be the one. It is her privilege. She has to be the one to waive it. And if I don't think there's any indication of any knowing and voluntary waiver of anything beyond what she said and those very few words about what she said when she first had the discussion with Mr. Yannetti, which, by the way, is not, inculpatory. It could be, you're looking for answers. You're looking for answers of what just happened. If you weren't looking for answers, quite frankly, I think the worst of her. Then I would say, oh, she's not looking for answers because she knows what happened. So, that's how I think if I were the defense attorney, I would have spun it, or I would be spinning it. Avid Events, let me show you this. Do you think Judge Cannoni, and I know you all refer to as Annie Bev, and so does my pod partner, stream partner, Michael Bryant, but I'm a barred member of many bars, and I have been a Prague Vice in Massachusetts. So as that, I tried to refer to Judge Cannoni as Judge Beverly Cannoni. And, you may not like it, but that's me. And that's how I feel about my profession and how I need to act with regard to that. So I will call her out if I think her rulings are wrong without saying bad things about her personally, but I will call out her rulings. But Avid Events says, and let me do that again, do you think Bev considers defendants' rights with her rulings? She seems to overlook them often. Yeah, I actually do think she does, because she was a defense attorney for so long. And the other thing about it is that it's interesting, because the rules, discovery rules, which she actually was the head of the committee that redrafted them, are very favorable for the defense, are really favorable for the defense. Yet I know that some of the big rulings here, which is like not bringing the jury back right away to see what their verdict is, by not telling the jury, asking them whether they have a determination. I think some of those were not really great rulings. And would she do them over? I don't know if she had to do them over. It seems to be that she goes by, this is how we do it in Massachusetts. And the problem is that how they've been doing it in Massachusetts really needs to be looked at by the legislature and maybe by the Supreme Judicial Court there. Because despite her rulings, Massachusetts has and the Supreme Judicial Court, that's their Supreme Court, okay, has some of the best rules on forensic evidence and eyewitness identification in the nation. They're very forward thinking. So it's amazing when you see how forward thinking the Supreme Judicial Court is there, and how different in terms of rulings such as, do you state the reason for an objection is in Massachusetts. So I think she goes by that. She's a product of her environment, and her environment is Massachusetts. All right, let's see. Let me do that. Let me show this one. All right, PCM question. Yesterday, Hank Brennan said that the defendant, Karen, asked the Attorney General if the FBI, can't remember, I think it was the FBI, I thought, to look into the case. What guilty person does that? Yeah, I think he did say that. He said, but he was trying to talk about the defense and say, Karen Reed, but by her defense team, asked them to look into this case. And I do remember him saying that, but there was the Attorney General of the FBI. And I don't know exactly. And that's, but see, what Hank Brennan has done now is taken that to say, because that was done, and it clearly wasn't Karen Reed calling up, hey, 1-800 Attorney General of the United States or the state of Massachusetts, or hey, 1-800 FBI. It wasn't her doing that. It had to be attorneys going to somebody. That he's taken that to say, therefore, there was a relationship between the Department of Justice and ARCA, and that relationship colors the independence of ARCA. And that's what he is using to say that colors the independence of ARCA. It's really, really kind of disgusting, to me. I mean, you all know about the Sandra Birchmore case. Are you telling me if the attorneys in that civil case called up the feds and said, you should look into this case because, look, we have this opinion. It happened to be from my husband, Dr. Michael Bodden, that says this is a homicide. Do you think, does that mean that the feds' investigation is colored in some way? No, it just means that they're taking an independent look at things. So I think it's really, really, really a terrible thing. And again, this is what kind of like turned me yesterday. And I kept saying to you all, I think Hank Brennan's a good attorney. I still think he's a professional attorney. I think his cross-examinations, if he were a defense attorney, he'd say, well, he's pretty terrific. But I think as a prosecutor, you have a certain duty to justice. You have a certain duty to the truth. As a defense attorney, you just have a duty to your client, right? And that these digs and how he's handling this, to me, is something that really just set me wrong yesterday. And I've been one of the, as you know, and you've all been at me for it, the last people have been saying that I still think he's a good attorney, and the sense that for his client, he's turned this case around have people like, oh, some people are now concerned. I mean, the polls were showing afterwards that they were concerned about the defense team. So if that's how you're going to judge it, he's done a good job. I just tend to judge it on, I think his duty is to do good, to do truth, to do justice, like justice served. And that yesterday he kind of turned my opinion of him a little bit on a 45-degree angle. All right, Sui Generous, thank you again for your donation, Sui Generous. You've been so generous all week to us, and I think the week before, coming on the show, donating to the show, and all. And a heart, yes, thank you, a heart too. Your voice of reason, glad to be on board in the beginning, support you and share as this channel is the next biggie with your expertise. Thank you very much. We're trying. You all know, for those of you who are just on tonight and just started tonight, Michael and I were hosts, and I have a full-time law practice. My practice, though, does big cases, so I don't have like 100 cases. I work with teams all over the United States, and I have a limited number of cases because they're large, and if they're civil cases, they try to settle for large amounts. If they're criminal cases, you've all seen some of my criminal cases, and right now I don't want to travel as much and be away for 6 months, so I try to do more of looking at cases and telling teams where they should go and how they should go, and what they should be doing in cases that they may not be doing in cases where I'd have to travel in criminal cases. But we were 1 day a week host at Law and Crime for, I think I was 5 years. I think Michael may have been a little longer, Michael Bryant. And it was great. It taught us a new profession in terms of how we had things in our ears, which, and how to host a TV channel, which is different than being a lawyer. And also understanding this true crime community, of which you all are a big part of, and how voracious you are with an appetite to learn, and to learn about the truth, and to learn how things really are and all, and how you are so supportive. And so we said, well, why don't we just do a podcast like 1 day a week for 7 minutes on a case? And I think we started with Trichonis. Well, 1 day a week last spring, and we were like going to do, and that's what we did. And it was, we just were having fun because we liked each other, and at dinner time one time we said, well, let's do it. And then when Law and Crime got rid of their whole commentary section last September, beginning on Labor Day, we said, well, maybe we should do this a little bit more seriously. So we started trying to do things. We didn't know what the heck we were doing. Okay. We didn't know what platform to use. Started trying to do things a little more seriously. And then we were helped by the podcast community. Is very helpful. Bob Mata from Defense Diaries said, hey, come on with my show. I'm going to help you with some moderators, and you know who they are. They're right here. That one of them doesn't like to be called out, so I won't do that. And they're very helpful, helping us. And because they're helping us, we can donate more of our time to try to run this. And what started as 7 minutes 1 day a week has become, like, as you can see, I'm spreading my Friday nights with you all. Because you deserve it on this case. You have a voracious appetite on this case, and you want to learn, and hopefully we can help with that learning. And we need help from you too, because we also have law practices to run, right? And so a lot of times we may need that flow chart that I asked you on the facts. We may need that, right? Because we may not have the specific dates and times, but we have a viewpoint, and we can tell you how things run. And because I've tried a number of cases, and I'm happy to say that when I tried these cases, my clients were not in jail, or when I've been attached to them, as for instance, after Michael Skakel was convicted, the first person they called was me to put together the appellate team, and now he's out, and he's been exonerated. So my clients tend to stay with me. I love my clients. I would not take them any other way. I had nothing but good relationships with them. Some of them I know you don't like, all right? But I feel very strongly when I get into this case that I am on the right side, because it's not so much whether people are guilty or not. It's also if they're overcharged, right? What if you're guilty of an aggravated assault or a manslaughter, but you're being charged with a death penalty? There's room for defense attorneys. We need defense attorneys, and we need you to honor defense attorneys. And maybe if you understand how we think, which is what I try to do, that you won't be so harsh on us next time we take the most hated case in the world or whatever. And look, I have views on cases. For instance, I'll say it right now. I think Brian Kohberger is absolutely guilty. Okay. No doubt in mind. And then there's nothing that's going to change my mind likely on that case, but I'm not going to be nasty and trolly and body to people who are defending them, because if we didn't have defense attorneys, we wouldn't have the results that we saw in YSL. Of course, we'd like to get Yak Gotti out of jail. The only person who was found not guilty is still in jail. So we wouldn't have the Ashley Merchants. We're trying to bring that aspect to you in this case. Yes, Paranoia, is that how you pronounce it? 07? Thank you for your donation. Will the Glower advertises you strongly. Yes, we had Will on. He was wonderful. And there was a funny way how we met Will. Michael Bryant we're one of the only podcasts. Will the Glower is up there, but of the mainstream podcasts, we're there. We've been there, right? Michael Bryant's been there at Kent a number of times. As you know, I'm one of the only people that's on a streaming network that's tried a case against Alan Jackson for 6 months. Inspector, I got the hung jury. We respect each other incredibly highly because we were in the trenches together. We know what it's like and all. And Michael Bryant was actually had met Aiden up there, and he knew of the story of who Aiden was with when Aiden was going to be charged with the tampering, but he didn't want to give Will's name because he didn't think that it was appropriate for us to do so. And he was absolutely right. But then Will came forward, came on the show. We've had a wonderful discussion with him. We hope that Will comes back on it. With Scott McGinnis was on. And we invite the other side on too. I mean, let's hear from what people have to say. If we're going to be a fair network, let's hear what everyone has to say here. I may not agree with them, but we're certainly going to hear what they have to say, and we're not going to castigate them in a way that trolls and bots do. Micah, Linda, do you know Carl Douglas? Could you get him as a guest? You know what? I probably could get Carl Douglas as a guest. Did you want him on this case? Here's been our issue. Here's been our problem. We had so many things built up, including, as you know, we're going to start this thing where we're trying to solve the death of a young woman in 1968. I have all the information because somebody came to me over the Christmas holidays, and he's now 72, and he said, Linda, before I die, this young girl has been forgotten. No one even knows she existed. I need to find out what happened to her. She was from my hometown. Could you look at it? And I said, well, I probably have to look at it with the streaming network with a lot of people because this is 1968, and we couldn't find anything on her. But then I finally did. I found everything by going through Ancestry. I was able to find a lot, and I still have to find her brother as to where he is located because I've said this, and if you all have ideas, maybe we're going to put together a level of a membership that can run things on a find out what happened to her, because I have to have people in charge who may, we don't want any of you sued. We don't want any of you hurt. We don't want any of you coming to this review. We just want to find out what happened to this young woman. And I've only given her first name. Her first name was Stephanie, and she died in 1968. But we need to put that together. We want to put a panel of domestic violence survivors together to talk about how important domestic violence is. And we have people committed to that already, but we haven't had the time with Reed and ASAP Rocky that seems to have taken over and it just swooped in everything. I also want to put together a panel with Richard Gabriel, the jury consultant, and Joe Tacopino, and all about, and another prosecutor, about prosecutors' ethical duties. And to have, for instance, ethics counsel on making decisions on witnesses. That is actually a roundtable discussion. And I would hope that you'd all be interested in that and come to those segments. And maybe there'll have to be additional segments in addition to covering trials. But we have been so busy covering this every single night of the week. And we've asked so much of our moderators, so much of Missy Mayhem, for instance. Missy, take a bow. That we can't ask much more And you know, we've been here every night. So this 7-minute a week podcast all of a sudden has just grown. And we laugh because in October we had about 200 subscribers, and now we think we should be closing in pretty soon on 10,000 the way things are going. Idiot win. Let me just show this. Thank you so much. You gifted 20 Just to Serve TV memberships. 20 that is so great for people that need them. But Micah, you know, just send us a text or an email. You have our email. You definitely have our email, because hopefully you'll have our mug by now. As to what you'd like Carl Douglas on, and I can certainly give Carl a call. Absolutely. And see if we can get him on the show. But what case you want him on? What do you want him to talk on? All right. Now, anybody else have any, I'll use glaring questions that they need answers tonight? It's 8:14. You've been with us for 2 hours and 15 minutes, and I appreciate you all. And I know that there's another 300 questions that we can go through, and maybe you know, I could try one day, if there's like nothing happening, that we can take all these questions. I think we can get a printout of them, Missy, right? I think we can get a printout of them and try to then come back and just answer questions, because the reason we do this, again, not only to give you our point of view and our experience, but to answer your questions, because you're the people that count, and it's your questions that count. And if the criminal justice system is going to be Just to Serve TV, or is going to be Just to Serve for everybody and everyone in the United States and maybe the world, then we all have to understand how the system runs and how to make it better. Okay, I think that we are done for the night. Missy Mayhem, thank you very much. For everybody on the air, thank you very much. For Michael Bryan, who's having a nice dinner somewhere, I don't know. I'm just kidding. Of course, he should be having a nice dinner. He was in Canton. As I said, I get to stay home. I get to stay in my office. I get to talk to you. And he's on the road all the time. And he's really a fabulous pod partner. And I adore him to death. And so does my husband, by the way, who says hello to you all and says, can he take his wife out for dinner? Okay, so I'm going to see you all, and I'll see you Monday. We'll let you know what time.